Greetings, friends. Welcome to the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm thrilled to be here with you this evening. I hope that things are working well for you and that you are just being gritty as you're wrapping up the new year. So many great announcements. First things first, the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with Dr. India White will be featured on X Factor EDU Network, hosted by Dr. Matthew Joseph. You can also find this on Spotify. Also, it will be hosted on my social media platforms, which are going to be Facebook is Miss India White, LinkedIn is The India White, Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach, Instagram is Indie238, YouTube is India White 123, and TikTok is Dr. India White. I wanted to remind you guys of an upcoming event. We have the Get Gritty for the New Year Women's Empowerment Conference. It is the Getting Gritty for the New Year Women's Empowerment Conference. It will be held this December on December 19th at 4 p.m. Eastern or Mountain Time. So that's 6 p.m. Eastern Time or 4 p.m. Mountain Time. This will be a 4-hour event. So please join us. We have wonderful speakers lined up. We've got some breakout sessions and vision boards and things like that planned. So we hope to see all of you ladies in the room. Now, I also wanted to remind you guys of the Grit Academy. We are looking for students, so please send any students your way that are needing some extra tutoring support for the new year. Remember, this podcast is if you are trying to close the achievement gap and you're having classroom management issues or students aren't motivated to do the work, then you can join us here on the Grit and Equity Talks podcast. And we will talk about grit and some strategies together. Also, check out the website, www.india-white.com for books, blogs, or to schedule me for speaking or coaching events. I know many math conferences are starting to look at, potential speakers and things. I'd be honored to join you guys. So please just remember that we are out here. I am out here ready to join you and to have a great time. Now, with that said, I know we are wrapping up this school year. We are wrapping up so many different things, right? There's so much anxiety, lots of ups, lots of downs. Some people right now are dealing with more downs than ups. Some people are dealing with trauma, tragedy, grief, not knowing what's going to happen for the new year. There's just a lot of uncertainty in the air. And unfortunately, that can lead down to having to make some tough decisions. And that requires that we all have to have tough grit. So this episode today, we'll talk about having tough grit in the face of doubt, in the face of uncertainty, in the face of grief, in the face of sorrow, in the face of disappointment, how to have tough grit. One thing about grit is you definitely have to be resilient. And you have to realize that when you're trying to tackle this life, no, life is not fair, but that does not mean that you cannot enjoy life. I think we all have to remember that life does have cycles, ups and downs. Sometimes you're up in the mountaintop and sometimes you're in the valley, and sometimes you stay longer than you wanted to in the valley. And you're going to have to know how to recycle grit and learn how to pull yourself through certain times and have certain ways to have outlets whenever you need, to take a break and things like that. So with that said, I do want to talk with you about some things that I was able to find on the web for us regarding this. And then we can come back together and we can talk about it. Okay. So first things first is I want to look into this guy's work named Paul Tough, which is so funny. His name is Paul Tough, and we're talking about tough grit. So it's kind of funny how that works. So let's listen to him here. He wrote this for, it's Nation Han, Adrian Lockhart, and Paul Tough. It says resilience and learning. So it says grit keeps coming up in education circles. I kept trying to tell you guys that. It is. It says the idea that we can teach character, courage, and resolve is huge to students in an effort to help them grapple with difficulties that arise in school and in life. This idea resonates with me. Grit got to me this day. Grit got me to this day. Yeah, it gets me through every day. But different ideas and trends pop up frequently in education. Research indicates that new approaches we might take to educate those who have been proven difficult to educate. For instance, policymakers move on from the No Child Left Behind to Every Student Succeeds Act, which educators, you already know that language. It says funders decide on new funding priorities, which drives the implementation of new strategies by nonprofits. Right. So here's the superintendent, John Fairley of Edgecombe County Public Schools. He told us that low wealth districts like his could take on 50 different initiatives with 50 different funding sources. It's tempting to take on all of the programs as you work to find a path forward for every student. And it says, I've had teachers tell me that they feel like they're on a hamster wheel, of the new programs as leaders cycle in and out of a school. It's easy to understand why educators have an initiative fatigue. You guys hear that? Initiative fatigue. Right. It's just, you get tired. It's just like one more thing, right? So it says, the emphasis on grit, overcoming adversity, and developing resiliency feels different to me. And then it says, researcher and author Paul Tough recently released this book on helping children succeed, what works and why, which is building momentum for the ideas behind the grit boomlet. Tough draws upon decades of research on adverse experiences to present a vision for why grit matters to the development of all children, particularly low-income students. Tough notes that within American public schools, a majority of students are now classified as low income. This is very true. In the opening paragraphs of helping children succeeds, he articulates why this should matter to us. So it says, helping poor kids succeed is now by definition the central mission of American public schools and by extension, the central responsibility of the American public. And, I want to say something here because it says poor kids, right? And it makes you assume that these kids were born poor, have always been poor. But can I tell you that sometimes life circumstances can happen to children and they can be poor in an instant. They can be placed in a situation that they're all of a sudden looking at, financial strains, and now they are in a lower income category. And so I want us to be sensitive when we're talking about low income children, because I think low income, it's not a permanent status. They can work out of it. It is simply just one part of a variable of a child's life. It's not a defining element. And sometimes we can be tempted to assume and to define and to judge and to, just throw all of our lots into what we think seems like that's the norm for a child. So I want us to be sensitive as educators moving forward to make sure we're not falling into those categories so that we can serve students without, those biases and without assuming that they're always poor and things like that. So let's keep going. He continues here. He says, this statement is common as we travel the state of North Carolina. So in North Carolina, after all, we have even more students who are classified as low income, so at least 53%. And then he says, one nonprofit leader recently told me the biggest question before us is, can we educate poor children? Can we give them an opportunity to succeed? Tough notes that the Southern Education Foundation, they tracked a steady rise in low-income students when they first began to track the numbers in 1989. At the time, low-income population checked in at roughly 1/3 of total students. So we see that that's always been just in our nation. It keeps going. And now let's look at some questions. It says, is it possible for every child to have the chance of success in the school? Of course, right? So he says his colleague Molly Osborne joined him for a discussion around resiliency grit with him. And so it says, Tough noted that when we spoke, it was simply not the most effective strategy. Part of it was most of the most effective teachers didn't use words like grit and character. And I've said that. I said that we call it everything else We call it, it's a fighter. You've got the wittedness. We call it so much, but it's grit. Grit is a professional term, right? So let's keep going. So it says the reason is that these skills are not intellectual functions like riding a bike, doing algebra, or knowing how to read, and that you learn them and that you don't forget. But grit, it's a character trait, and it ultimately is a state of mind. Okay, so Tufts shares that research indicated kids might persevere in algebra, but not in another math class. Interesting. The research he shared elaborates the state of mind that embodies grit, which is largely driven by motivation, drawn by the student's environment, including a student-teacher dynamic. Very important. Dr. John Hattie mentions the importance of a teacher, and that teacher really can cultivate grit and harness grit in a student if there's a relationship or if there's some type of environment established where grit can thrive and students can be motivated and feel safe. So this is a lot. So he keeps going. I think I'm going to stop sharing just for a little bit. He's talking about shifting mindsets and things. It's a lot of great things here. But I think, I'm going to push pause on that and just kind of reflect on what he's saying. And I think it's important that we do, as educators, we just take initiative to do what we can to build grit in students, and to not come into the classroom space with a fixed mindset. Johnny just can't do it. I've tried everything that kid just can't. And sometimes you have tried everything, but this is why we live in a world where there are so many other experts, right, that could join alongside us. There are different resources we can find, academically on YouTube, scholarly resources. You could find journal articles and things like that. Speaking of journal articles, I was able to publish a journal article with NCTM. Thank you, NCTM leaders, for that opportunity. And I did talk about developing grit in math students. You can find that in the latest volume edition of the NCTM journal articles for teachers, teaching and learning. So thanks for that. But like I said, there are so many different resources out here that will help you. So don't wring your hands just yet. Keep looking. Sometimes you have to ask another colleague or an administrator or principal or superintendent. Like sometimes you have to ask beyond just your four walls and figure out what other options, what worked for them. That teacher that's been teaching 35 years, that's not burned out. Why? What's happening, right? So those are some things I want you to think about whenever you're looking at, trying to overcome and have tough grit. Now I want to lead us with that into the next thing I was able to find for us. And it's just like a really cute little video. This really cute video is saying, unlock your leadership grit, overcoming challenges. So this is for, adults. How do you do this? Overcoming challenges with resilience.
Have you ever wondered what sets true leaders apart? Why do some people crumble under pressure while others rise and shine brighter than ever? The answer lies not in the absence of difficulty, but in the presence of resilience. Think about Sir Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin Group. A high school dropout, Branson's journey to becoming a billionaire hasn't been a smooth one. He's faced numerous failures, from the collapse of Virgin Cola to the disaster of Virgin Galactic's initial spaceflight. But did he give up? No.
I think that's powerful. And, just trying to also be respectful of copyright and things like that. But, he dropped out of high school and was able to build a business, and now he's a billionaire, and they're talking about resilience. Resilience is your ability to bounce back, in the face of those obstacles and to keep moving forward no matter what, no matter how tired, no matter how disappointed, no matter how sad, no matter how many things are pulling at you, you're still able to, have that resilience and move forward. So let's keep listening and seeing what else they had to say here. And like I said, I'm being respectful of the copyright. So
those failures, learn from them, and use them as stepping stones to achieve extraordinary success. That's what resilience in leadership looks like. Or consider Arianna Huffington, the co-founder of the Huffington Post. She faced public humiliation when her second book was rejected by 25 publishers. However, Huffington didn't allow this setback to deter her. She persisted and eventually created one of the most influential news sites in the world.
And that's another thing there. It's just like being willing to face rejection and see rejection as redirection. I think we have to reprogram, recalibrate ourselves to know that you will be rejected, right? And that's fine. That doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It's just a matter of getting that as an opportunity to propel forward again. And sometimes you're like, oh God, I don't want to start over. I don't want to do this, but sometimes it's what you have to do, right? And like I said, there's nothing wrong with you. And I think we need to remember that as we are pursuing this journey in life, and we're remaining gritty at all aspects, we still have to remember that rejection is also a part of this, a part of your road towards success. So we will look at one more thing that they're saying here, and then we'll bring it back. You can see an obstacle as an opportunity, and see those challenges as moments that you can overcome because you're building something. You're building a dream. I like how we ended on Steve Jobs, because every one of us has been impacted by him now with iPhones, iPad, whatever, iCloud, everything. It's just amazing what one man was able to envision and to dream, and then to have like the world backing that vision. Even as he has passed on, we're still impacted greatly in a wonderful way by his success. So it only takes one person, only takes one idea, one dream, one thought. So that could be you. Why not? So with that said, I thought that was really neat what they were talking about with resiliency. Grit is all about resilience. It's great resilience in time, that passion and perseverance. That is what's going to help you remain resilient. Okay. And you're going to have that in tough moments, when things aren't working out, when you're dealing with hardships. You're going to have to learn how to wipe the tears, keep moving forward, how to take a break, how to say yes to yourself when you've been so used to saying yes to everyone else, which I've been guilty of that plenty of times. You're going to have to learn how to bounce back, because this world needs you. This life needs you. Even if you don't feel like it does, it does. And you might not have found your people yet, or your tribe yet, or your place of belonging just yet. But that doesn't mean that it's not right around the corner. You have to keep moving forward. And tough grit is what you're going to need on your journey. So with that said, let's keep moving forward. Let's look at another here. Leave us with some quotes to kind of lift us up when you're looking at tough grit. So this guy's kind of happy here. Okay. So it says 67 quotes, grit quotes to persevere when times are tough. Thank you, Rebel Jones, for this. So it says here, take a deep breath, be kind to yourself. Find the courage to see the problem through. Yes, it may be difficult, but without challenge, there is no victory. So you're going to look at 67 different things. It says, why is it important to find grit and persevere when times are tough? Obstacles are part of life. They can be something simple like a long, a long line. Okay, look here and see what he says about the 67 quotes. So it says, quote 1, every great story happened when someone decided not to give up. That's by Sprite Loriano. Next, your dreams are on the other side of your grit. Next, grit is not just some elbow grease term for rugged persistence. It is often an invisible display of endurance that lets you stay in a comfortable place, work hard to improve upon a given interest, and do it again and again. I like that. Let's keep going. Number 11, the only thing that overcomes hard luck is hard work. Okay. The next one, unknown. You have a choice. Number 14, you can throw in the towel, or you can use it to wipe the sweat off your face. I like that. And then 15, grace, gratitude, and grit. 16, grit has two components, passion and perseverance. All right. Let's keep going. And Travis Bradbury, humans are creatures of habit. If you quit when things get tough, it gets that much easier to quit next time. On the other hand, if you force yourself to push through it, the grit begins to grow in you. I like that. Let the grit grow in you. So look at this next one. It says, grit in a word is stamina. But it's not just stamina in your effort. It's also stamina in your direction, stamina in your interests. If you're working on different things, all of them are very hard, you're not really going to get anywhere. You'll never become an expert. So yeah, become an expert. So you're going to need grit to become that expert. Okay. Next, success doesn't just happen. It's a product of hard work, grit, and ingenuity. This is Aguo, David. All right. Next, George Washington, the harder the conflict, the greater the triumph. Next, 33. Great works are performed not by strength, but by perseverance. I like that. And that's the one that they highlighted. Okay. Next, Chrissy Mossberg says, number 37, grit is picking yourself up and moving forward even when you think you can't take one more step. That part. Next, grit, the raw endurance, perseverance, and passion that keeps you going despite obstacles. Next, a grit mind strengthens all of your strengths. Ooh, I like that. Next, grit, refusing to give up, pushing to the limit, and wiping the sweat off the face in order to make a better tomorrow. So this is really good. Let's read a couple more of these, but I think that we're starting to get the point here of just the concept of grit. I like to say this. You will have weak moments in life. Yes, we all do. But you cannot succumb to those moments. You cannot succumb to the weak parts of you. When life gets tough and you want to throw in the towel and give up, you cannot succumb to that. You have to give yourself permission to have a moment, right? It might be a temper tantrum or something. Don't take it out on anybody else. Give yourself permission, right, to feel what's taking place, to embrace the hardship, the pain, the grief, the sorrow. Embrace that. You know what I mean? But don't let that overtake your entire life. Don't make a moment, a decision in a very volatile moment in your life, in a very vulnerable moment, in a weak moment. Don't make a life drastic altering decision. Don't make a life altering decision in a moment like that. Instead, just embrace the moment, accept what you're feeling, accept what you've received, and then take more moments afterwards to process, how am I going to bounce back? You should always have a question in the back of your mind. Now that this has happened, how am I going to bounce back? It should not be, now that this has happened, life is over. No, now that this has happened, how can I bounce back? So, these are some things that we have to definitely keep in mind. Let's go back to this. I want to look at a couple more, and then we will wrap up our episode together on grit. You guys have been fabulous. Thank you. Next, a lot of quotes. Nelson Mandela, 48. It always seems impossible until it's done. Oh, I like that. Yes. It's like a workout. Next, grit. Grit is refusing to give up. It's persistence. It's making your own luck. Next, it's just as important to know when to drop something and shift direction as it is to know when to stick with something. When we quit things that aren't working for us, we free up our willpower and perseverance with the things that really do matter. Richard Karlgaard. All right, let's look at some last ones here. Number 61, successful people aren't born successful. Behind it all, there is hard work, persistence, and a lot of grit. Sonia says, never hope for it more than you work for it. Ooh, I like that. Never hope for it more than you work for it. And then I like this one by Dr. Duckworth, or excuse me, Dr. Carol Dweck. It says, effort is one of those things that gives meaning to life. Effort is when you care about something, that something is more important to you and you're willing to work for it. Yes. And the last one I look at here, the question isn't who's going to let me, it's who's going to stop me. Oh my word. That's powerful. The question is not who's going to let me, it's who's going to stop me. And I think that should be a wonderful mindset that we can also take into the upcoming new year, as we hope to cross over into 2025. So with that said, guys, thanks so much for joining me again on the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with Dr. India White. It's been wonderful talking with you again today about grit. Again, I wanted to remind you of, just some announcements and, some information for those that might have logged on late. The Grit and Equity Talks podcast, it will be featured on the X Factor EDU network, and it's hosted by Dr. Matthew Joseph, and it can be found on Spotify. In addition to that, I would love for you to follow me on social media. Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube is India White123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. Please check out the website. The website, www.india-white.com. You'll find books, blogs. You can schedule me for an event and so on. Also, I'm excited about the Getting Gritty for the New Year Women's Empowerment Conference. It will be, again, hosted online. It is a virtual event. Please bring your ladies, bring your business people, bring everyone that wants to have a good time. And that will be on December 19th at 4 p.m. Mountain Time, so at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're looking forward to having you guys in the room. And, of course, make sure you're checking out just all of the different things taking place, different events, different resources on my website, and also the Grit Academy. If you have any little ones that, can benefit from online tutoring and learning opportunities, please send them our way. We would love to connect with you and help them. Also check out the Grit Mini Workshop on the Grassroots Workshops website, whenever you get a chance for that. And so with that said, thanks so much for joining me again on the Grit and Equity Talks podcast. I wish you nothing but the best as we are wrapping up this new year. Stay gritty. See you next time.